Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Public Game and Fish Commission meeting here in Gillette today. Thank you to our hosts. Accommodations have been quite nice. Do we have Ashley online? Okay, let's
Yes,
do
Mr. President.
Okay, we'll do a roll call of the commissioners, and Commissioner Ludval is here. Commissioner Masterson? Here. Commissioner Jolovich. Here. Commissioner Ladwig.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Having a quorum, all of us present, will proceed with today's business. We have an agenda. Do any commissioners have any additions or corrections, problems with their agenda?
Mr. President, I think we're striking number 4 out of our agenda. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. So that
Okay,
would
as
be
you
it.
review your agenda, our commenting instructions for the public. For those of you watching via Zoom, you need to put in an advanced comment sheet prior to this meeting. You can do that with the web host. Give them your name and the agenda item you want to speak to. After each agenda item today, I'll take public comment. If you're in the room and would like to make comment, you need to do a blue sheet or these new, I think we have a new sheet with a heading on it, filled out at the back table. Get those to me for public comments. With those orders in place, let's start this meeting with the Pledge to Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. So our first item of business today will be the minutes that will need commission approval from our July 17th, 18th meeting in Wheatland.
Mr. President, I move to approve the July meeting minutes, and that would include the executive meeting minutes from July.
Okay, it's so moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Ashley. That motion carries. Director's report, Director Nesvik.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the commission. I've got a fairly brief update here today. A couple of topics here that certainly many of you may have been hearing about from some of your constituents and potentially even among some of the local game and fish folks. I'm going to start off with our revision to the sage grouse plan. So that is an effort that's been actually was initiated here about a year ago by the BLM. This is a federally directed effort where BLM is looking across range wide across all sage grouse states and is updating those management plans in each state based on a directive from a federal court decision from a couple of years ago, indicating that the BLM failed to consider certain things that they should have considered in the last revision. So anyway, that's out there. There's been multiple public meetings across our state. There's been certainly legislative inquiries, and essentially the kind of where we're at in the process is we started with our field staff did a phenomenal job of in very short order updating the science part of the update to the Wyoming plan. Essentially, this whole thing starts with providing biological data that informs where changes may be necessary as far as where core is or where core is not, additions and removals of core areas. And so that work was done in very short order back in the spring. That informed the revision of maps and released to the public in the early part of summer on what the potential or the draft maps looked like. There's been, again, multiple public meetings since then, as well as many meetings of the sage grouse implementation team to look at where Wyoming wants to land as far as what our proposed management plan for our state will look like. Simultaneous to that, we have been participating with the task force of the of the Western Governors Association, where sage grouse states, as well as the Washington DC based senior leaders of the BLM are involved to look at this at the west-wide scale, I guess you could say, determining timelines, looking at what particular alternatives that are currently identified through the NEPA process might be agreeable, and what, how they might need to change before the BLM goes through their decision-making process. So bottom line is all that work is still going on. We're still continuing to have some public meetings. There's certainly still folks in certain parts of the state that are concerned. The current timeline is that we believe that the administrative draft of their EIS will be out later in the fall, early winter, and that, potentially a final environmental impact statement would be done in about a year. Now, there's two important documents here. One is obviously whatever the BLM decides through their NEPA process that's in the final environmental impact statement. But then there's also our sage grouse executive order that we've had in place now through 3 governors, that really outlines the Wyoming core area strategy and our sage grouse plan. And that will likely be revised as well, but it probably will not be revised until after the final environmental impact statement from the BLM is out and complete. So a little bit of time on that. Another draft planning document that's out there for public review, has been since early July or late June, I can't remember which, is our draft feed ground management plan. This is the culmination of some really hard work between an identified stakeholder group, very diverse stakeholder group, and then our field personnel in the Jackson and Pinedale regions. They engaged in an extensive process over, like I said, about 2 years to come up with a draft plan that really looks and focuses on what the long-term management of our 22 state-run feed grounds looks like in Western Wyoming. And this is different from a lot of the plans that we put together and eventually bring to you for your approval, in that this is truly very long-term, decades long, maybe multiple decades, up to 40, 50 years long. It's a long, long look. And that's really important in this discussion because, we are dealing today with decisions that were made in the early 1900s. So right, wrong, or indifferent, the situation we're in today is not new. And if we want to make changes to where we're at today with feed ground management, it's not something that can be done overnight. And frankly, there may be some places where in our futures as commissioners and employees of the Game and Fish, there may not be changes in some places that are even feasible. So the draft is out. We've got a lot of good feedback to this point. Our folks are looking at and doing revisions. I need to correct myself. The public comment period ended on September 10th. So now we've got all the public comment. We've actually been working on revising the plan for several weeks now. And, we don't have a 90 or 100% solution yet on when that's coming to you, but likely it will be early winter when you will see this for your approval. Our intent is that when this gets to you, we will have done a lot of revision. We will have evaluated all the public comment. And because it's so complex and it's a pretty decent sized plan, we don't want to bring something to you that you've got to make a lot of changes to. But certainly, as in with any kind of a decision that we bring to you, there will always be room for you to make the adjustments you feel are necessary. So more to follow on that. I suspect some of you, especially Commissioner Roberts in the western part of the state, may be hearing about the plan. It's interesting. There were folks, from the conservation community that said this is a big fat nothing burger. You're not accomplishing anything with this. And then folks, on the other end of it that said this will have catastrophic effects. So interesting how folks read the same plan and had totally different perspectives, but that is reflective of the passion and the interest that folks have in this particular topic. So all that feedback is very welcome, and I appreciate folks taking the time to participate in our process and also to provide us comments. Our supervisors, John Lund and Brad Hovengale in that part of the world, have really led that effort, and they've done an exceptional job. And I really applaud their efforts. So another federal planning document is out there right now with the Rock Springs RMP. We received that here a few weeks ago from the BLM. This is a process that's been ongoing for, I believe, 15 years. Angie can correct me if I'm wrong. Almost 15 years. They finally come out with a publicly viewable draft. Basically, it's open for public comment right now. It'll be open for public comment till November 15th. And if I recall, even the ACECs have been extended, Angie, till November 15th. Is that right? So everything in the plan will be, people can comment until then. We definitely have serious concerns with some of the provisions in that resource management plan, and we will be meeting with our sister agencies as well as the governor's office to develop our comments and attempt to shape how that thing comes out in final form. Realize that there are several, folks, especially in Southwest Wyoming, that are concerned about that plan. I hope folks understand that we are going to do our level best to really evaluate the agreements, the recommendations that were agreed upon by the cooperative or the cooperators that were involved in that process for many, many years. And we're going to certainly look at what comments we can provide that will be most reflective of the interests of our constituents. We had a successful kickoff of our Leadership Development 1 class for this year up at the conservation camp here a couple weeks ago. We got a great new cohort of game and fish employees. It's pretty interesting to go around that room and listen to how long folks have been with the agency and just kind of looking at the diversity of age in the room. And it was interesting. I think we had as many as 25 years in the room, 25 years with the agency, and as little as 6 months. So anyway, great class. We always kick it off up there at the conservation camp. It's a really good place to kind of remember why we do what we do. It's a great setting for that. And we were lucky enough to have a special guest. Our travels allowed for our great governor to come and spend some time with the class. And he actually, we brought him in time for him to play in the cornhole tournament. And it's a big class. I mean, there was a lot of teams, and then he won. Him and game warden Kristen Devannon won the cornhole tournament, and so now he will go down in the history of LD and the conservation camp as being at least 1 year's recipient of that trophy. The other thing I wanted to mention is our employees have on a daily basis have requests from the public to help them out with different endeavors that they may have related to wildlife. And our own Commissioner Ladwig had a request. Somehow it came to him to help some folks find a place to fish in Niobrara County. And for those of you that are familiar with Niobrara County, you may know that there's just not a lot of water there. But there is some, and they got a hold of him and they said, look, we want to catch a fish in all 23 counties of Wyoming. And we thought maybe you could help us out. And lo and behold, Commissioner Ladwig hooked him up, found him a place to go fish on private land, and they were able to be successful and catch a fish in Niobrara County. So thank you, Commissioner Ladwig, for hooking those people up. Takes the whole team to do the right thing by our constituents. So last thing I just wanted to say is just remind folks that for our folks, particularly in the wildlife division, very busy time of the year. They're entering the hunting season, spending lots of time in the field. Lots of time out checking critters and interacting with the public. And really, because of the data collection efforts that we embark upon across the entire state, it's really not just the wildlife division. We have folks from other divisions that help out at check stations to collect CWD samples, check licenses, and do all those activities related to hunting season. And so it's a team effort. And I just wanted to wish all of our field personnel a great hunting season, a safe hunting season, and thank everybody for the great work they do every day. With that, I would stand for any questions from the commission.
Any questions?
Got one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Roberts.
Mr. President, this time Director, I'd like to applaud the efforts of, got the opportunity to go up to the Upper Green River on the large carnivore division with Supervisor Lund and Clint Atkinson and Ken Mills. And I want to impress upon everybody the diligent work that your department is doing up there and how forward thinking and how much that they really get ran around. And it's a great reflection on yourself and the department on how much work they're doing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you were hanging out with good company that day. So
Any other questions? Thank you, Director. Next item is some awards and recognitions that we'd like to do. Chief Osterlin. You got to poke your button.
Turn on the mic.
Attaboy.
All right, I did it.
That's good work already today.
Yep, I'm done. I'm going. Can I go home now? So it's with my distinct pleasure to recognize Josh Leonard for the Fish Division Employee of the Year. In my mind, it's probably one of the most significant awards that we give out because it's your peers have nominated him. And we have some very, very talented people within the division. And for Josh to boil to the top, it really means something. So I'm going to read a little bit to the nomination, but I don't want to stand up here by myself. So Josh, you come up, please. So Josh started in his current position, which is the AIS coordinator for the state in 2020. Prior to that, he was a specialist in Laramie for a couple of years. And since that time, he's really done an outstanding job in his position. I'm going to read a little bit. Josh serves in a unique but important department role that requires effective internal communication and coordination to coordinate one of the largest programs in the department. He works closely with regional fisheries management supervisors and AIS program specialists to implement this important program that includes 75 employees during the peak season. So a very large workforce, and he makes communication a priority by hosting monthly calls with regional personnel, coordinating spring and fall meetings of specialists and regional supervisors, and participating in fish management work schedule meetings. In a relatively short period of time, Josh has developed the fiscal understanding necessary to oversee an annual budget of about $2.5 million now. And that was just increased over the last couple of years, or last year anyway. I can figure out how to work this baby. Since that time when he took over the position, he's had some pretty serious challenges. One of them was the mothballs, and he did an excellent job. You were in the job for about a year, and he did an outstanding job of coordinating with the director's office and the division, and for a threat that we thought we'd never see before. The primary vector for AIS, zebra mussels and quagga mussels, has been watercraft. And for him to come in an aquarium plant really opened our eyes. And then when he thought he was done with some challenges, last year, we had Pactola Reservoir in South Dakota come up positive. And we did a lot of work to try to protect the state from that new threat, which involved closing down boat ramps in Glendo and Keyhole to protect those waters. And that wasn't an easy task. He spent a lot of time on the phone talking to not too excited anglers and boaters. But once again, he did an outstanding job pulling that off with a lot of hard work and coordination with the regions. And since that time, we were able to open back up the boat ramps. Everything's normal this year. And, you know, he even coordinated with a contractor to do a rapid response plan dry run up in virtually talking about Keyhole. And so he just continues to really do an outstanding job. And with that, I just wanted to present Josh with the plaque and tell you thank you for all your hard work. Next time we're going to make it shorter.
Congratulations, Josh. Director will have the next award presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. So last month, as you remember, we did most of our department awards, and this particular recipient wasn't able to be there, but Anika Mahoney is here today and is receiving the department's Outstanding Leadership Award for all of her great work over this past year. She was nominated by a dozen of her coworkers, which is pretty darn impressive, from not just her own work unit, but from other work units as well. And so I would ask Anika to join me up here at the microphone, and I'm going to talk through a very, very well put together nomination. So Anika worked for our Habitat Protection Program. And as many of you are aware, that's the group of folks that takes actions or policy decisions or different project proposals from around the state and evaluates how those may have impacts, positive or negative, for wildlife. And Anika, that's what she does on a daily basis for the department. She's highlighted by her peers as being somebody who leads within and outside of the department. She's taken on several interagency working groups, participates in a lot of different committees, including the Habitat Technical Advisory Group. She also serves on a collaborative partnership between industry and researchers focused on wind turbine blade painting and potential reductions in avian mortality. In addition, she coordinates complex working groups with industry agencies, landowners, NGO collaborators, and facilitates the Converse County Oil and Gas Raptor Study. This is oftentimes contentious work. Conversations are oftentimes a little tense, but she does an exceptional job of considering everybody's perspective and everybody's opinion and being respectful. She stepped up to ensure continued growth and success of her own program there in HPP, and she serves as a liaison to the Science Research and Analytical Support Unit. She keeps everyone apprised in this effort of science-related activities within her work unit and brings in innovative ideas to both the programs. She oftentimes identifies training needs, data needs, and other deliverables that other department staff can do their jobs better if her ideas are initiated. She's been crucial and important in implementing the sage grouse executive order that I just talked about in my last item. She also serves as a leader within her community. During the past 2 years, she's coordinated the Lander region's participation in Angel Tree at the Lander Middle School. And her leadership here has made Christmas happen for several Lander families that are in need. She is very good and respected because she can align team members around organizational goals and organizational strategies. She thinks at the 30,000 foot level as well as at the 10,000 foot level, and is also noted for exhibiting discipline and thought in her actions in achieving the department's mission and representing our department in a professional way. Very communicative, does an exceptional job in written and in oral form, and is always professional and respectful. And lastly, she's always searching for the best answer. And she's got a lot of intuition. She's very thoughtful, very intelligent, well-educated, and is just an exceptional example of how in our department, we need leadership at all levels, regardless of whether you're in a position of authority or not. And Anik is a perfect example of somebody who can lead at any level in the agency and inspire bigger and better things to happen because she's there and because of what she does. So I want to tell her thank you very much and congratulations, Anika. I just learned that was a surprise. Anika didn't know why she was here. That's good. So last, we've got another Valor Award, excuse me. And as the commission knows, there's, we don't award very many Valor Awards because oftentimes they're derived from some particularly difficult and challenging situations that our field personnel run into. And today, I'll be presenting a Valor Award to Game Warden Mitchell Kern. You can go ahead and join me up here. Warden Kern is in the room. I know he is. There he is. So many of you read probably some of the press reports about this incident that occurred just down the road from here this past December 15th, actually, of 2022, where there was some pretty bad things that happened at Keyhole Reservoir on the ice. And Warden Kern was asked by Crook County Search and Rescue and Wyoming State Parks and the sheriff's office to go out and assist in searching for some fishermen who had been reported to have fallen through the ice at the reservoir. The individual that first reported this tragic incident reported that he was able to crawl back on the ice and was making his way back in the direction of the Wind Creek boat ramp. He stated that he needed help immediately and that he was freezing solid and not able to continue to the ramp. This is when park ranger Brad Purcell informed him that an ice fisherman had gone through the ice and self-rescued and desperately needed help. The ranger and Warden Kern, who were in the area, put a plan together to search for the fisherman. And understand the weather conditions at this time were pretty darn bleak. I mean, it was 40 to 50 mile an hour winds, wind chills of minus 20 degrees. Snow depths varied between 0 inches and 3 foot drifts. Very dangerous situation. They couldn't see more than about 10 yards. That was their maximum visibility. They made their way to the boat ramp that had been reported to be the right location, where they met the local fire and EMS who had already started searching for the fishermen. While putting on survival suits and ice rescue gear, they overheard radio traffic from dispatch saying that the ice fishermen could see the rescuers' lights, but they were going in the wrong direction. So Warden Kern headed around Wind Creek Bay and started their search towards the east. And as they made their way out on the ice, they could faintly hear yelling and could barely make out a faint light out on the lake. As they made their way towards the light, the yelling became louder, but the visibility deteriorated and they continued to have a hard time being able to see him. Actually the light turned out to be 2 volunteer firemen who had located the fisherman. The fisherman was barely recognizable as he was covered in snow and frozen to the ice. Due to the unknown ice conditions, they decided to use a big throw rope to try to reach out to the fisherman, but he wasn't able to grab a hold of the rope, and they weren't able to pull the rope around him to kind of hook it to him and pull him to a patch of smooth ice. So Warden Kern and the ranger pulled him about 30 yards, went over to his location on, unknowing how dangerous the ice may be, and pulled him about 30 yards to a smooth patch where they could assess his condition. His clothing was completely frozen solid, but he was talking, and they were able to get him loaded on a litter and brought out to, they drug him about a half mile back to the boat ramp to get him in an ambulance and transported to the hospital. Obviously this was, he had to spend the next several days because of his condition receiving life-saving care. But undoubtedly, if Warden Kern and that park ranger hadn't done what they had done, he wouldn't be with us today. You may remember too from the press reporting, the other really tragic part of this was that during the rescue attempt, a separate UTV or side-by-side carrying 3 first responders also went through the ice, and 2 of those 3 individuals drowned when that vehicle went down below the ice. So, Warden Kern reflects the values of our agency and a lot of the bravery and courage that our folks have to engage in at a moment's notice around our state and across the agency. He's a great reflection of our department, and I'm darn proud of his actions there today. And thank you very much for what you did for our department and for those individuals that night.
Well, congratulations to all 3 of those award recipients, each exemplary and outstanding in your area of expertise. Chief Woltanger, are you ready? You're next, sir.
Good afternoon, President Brokaw, Director Nesvik, members of the commission. Eric Woltanger, Chief of Services, and I've got a brief update for your Jackson housing project that we started a couple months ago, but we actually started moving dirt probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Dirt was moving. The earthwork is progressing well. It kind of looks like a crater right now, but I think there's a vision there, and we'll get there. Last week, the excavation for units 1 and 2, the foundation was complete. I think rebar inspection occurred yesterday, and I haven't heard, but today the plan was to actually pour the foundations for the units 1 and 2. So hopefully that went off well and rain didn't impede any of that. Also, portions of the water line at the road crossing have been placed. The main line should be installed this week also. We've been working on the logistics with the DEQ, the town of Jackson, on the sewer line and the main water line to get all those permitted. So that's progressing well. We put a 50% deposit down with Stratford Homes to get the homes started in the manufacturing line. So hopefully those will start any day now. I'm not sure if the first one's going to be a 10-week completion or not, but that's kind of what I've been told. So Lauren and the contractor will go up there and do some inspection on the first couple as they go through the assembly line to make sure it meets all the requirements and meets all the codes. We've also worked with the comms division in the region, Mark Goki, on getting some signage up. The contractor has a big sign on the fence. If you haven't seen it, there is a QR code on the website, but there's also a QR code on the sign itself that the public can go up and scan with their phone and get information, upcoming information about the project and kind of the project status. And that's really about it. I stand for any questions if there's any questions on Jackson housing.
Commission have any questions?
Mr. President,
Go ahead, sir.
thank you. Appreciate the update. Any communication from the county?
President Brokaw, Commissioner Masterson, no.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't see any other questions. So thank you. Nice, easy report for Jackson Housing. Chief Osterlin. Our next agenda item is Fish Division, cool warm water fishery at Spees.
President Brokaw, commissioners. Today, want to give Dirk's going to give a presentation on the Spees Warm Cool Water Facility. The PowerPoint that he's going to show you might recognize from about a year and a half ago when we talked about the feasibility study that we conducted. And we've had discussions too at commission retreats about the severity of what we think the risk is of importation of some fish species from different states. So Dirk's going to give a presentation, and then at the end, we're going to ask for approval to move forward. So. Dirk.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Nesbitt. As Alan said, this is a presentation that most of you have seen parts of before. So it's just kind of a review of how did we get here and why do we think it's time to develop a warm and cool water facility. So I'll just talk a little bit about how did we, the fish that we get, where do we get them, the problems, the risks we're taking, a little bit of our approach in determining if we could do this. Talk about that feasibility study, the consultants we hired, and then talk a little bit about our proposed next steps. So we get fish now. I think this year we brought in about 1.5 million fish from 11 different species. Went to Arkansas to get black crappie and channel catfish, Nebraska to get sauger and tiger muskie, North Dakota to get northern pike and walleye, and then Oklahoma for bluegills. And then there's some other species there that in some years we also obtain from out of state. So on the map here, you can see some of the places where we've gone to get fish in the past that we no longer go because they're just too risky. Some of those locations are now positive for zebra or quagga mussels, and others just have other bad things either in the hatchery or so darn close that we've just stopped taking that risk. And even with the places we go now, I mean, we're very careful every year, but we're still concerned that it's not if they're going to get something, but when. So here, photos. This is a photo of Garrison National Fish Hatchery in North Dakota. And those ponds there are what we'll talk a little later about intensive and extensive fish culture. Extensive is outside in ponds. Those ponds are right next to the Missouri River, and zebra mussels are making their way slowly and steadily up the Missouri River. So it's a matter of time before they're at this facility and they get their water from the river. Also in the photo, when we get the fish out of those ponds, we're draining the pond and scooping up what comes in it, what's in the pond. I've got some pictures in a minute about that. But so, and then that snowy driving photo in the lower right is one of the challenges for us with importing fish is we go get them when they tell us it's time to come get them, and you face a variety of road and travel conditions. And so we do have people driving a long ways to get these critters. So this is some photos of what we call boarding. But once we recognize and began to see a variety of things coming in our load of fish besides the walleye that we're after, we've run those, or I think one of these is catfish, but we run those fish across the board, look at every one of them, try to pull out anything that's not what we want. And we find some things, and crayfish, we generally don't find full-size snapping turtles, but we can find, there's tadpole. I think those are bullfrog tadpoles on the right. And that fellow with the big bullfrog in the middle was one of our previous truck drivers. So what we get out of having our own facility, we can produce the species and numbers that our managers want. Now we'll ask for, let's say, channel catfish every year, but some years we don't get any. Some years we get some, so we'll be able to have better control over our production. Another aspect of how we get our fish, when we get a phone call, we're communicating with them up until it's time to go get fish. but the folks in North Dakota will say, come next Tuesday. And so we come next Tuesday and bring those fish back. And sometimes when you stock fish in terms of the time of year, the water temperature, if you have a cold front, the time of day you stock them, those all make a difference in the survival of those fish. When we've got them at our own facility in state, we'll be better able to control that and improve the survival. Obviously, we're going to cut down on the travel time, so we're going to a lot less stress on those fish. We won't be running them across the board, so we think that's going to help with survival. And the biggest deal of all, of course, is that we would eliminate the risk of importing invasive species from any of those places. So we did some work. Guy Campbell here, the fish culture supervisor, and Lars Alsager, who's the superintendent at the Spies hatchery, and they did a lot of this work at Spies. And I've got these guys here in case you have hard questions. But anyway, so we looked into what could we do, and really the extensive, doing it in ponds and the weather that we have, we would have a lot less survival. We would have lower survival in some years. And if you look nationally, a lot of the places in the Midwest who have done pond culture, extensive fish culture, are now moving towards intensive, or trying to get that inside to better control and limit some of the factors that are causing them problems. So we consulted some experts, learned from them how to do it. Lars and his crew did an amazing job of really trying to do something. These are people that raise trout, and they took the challenge to figure out how can we raise walleye, and they did a good job of it. But so we said, well, we can do it. We had to figure out the kinds of tanks. You'll see that muddy, the cloudy water there. That's one of the tricks to getting raising walleye, because if you raise them in the dark and the water's kind of muddy, they don't eat each other, and otherwise they do. And so another thing we learned, but they worked on a lot of different factors to figure it out, and they did in fact prove that with the water we've got at Spies and the smart people we got at Spies, we can get it done. So as we got ahead of myself there, we conducted these trials and showed over 4 years that we were able to raise walleye successfully. And I think it's safe to say got a little better at it each year, figured that out. And now if we had again, on a small scale where we cut our isolation facility in half, and we're able to just use a couple of tanks to prove the concept. So we said, all right, we could do that. So we wanted to hire consultants to kind of look at the plan. So Guy worked on a preliminary sketch. I'll show you a picture of it here in a second. But what might we do? And then we hired a consulting firm to sort of look at our what we call bioprogramming, but can you raise those fish at that size at that time and the numbers you want with the facility you've got? Do we, how's the plumbing going to work? What kind of equipment do we need? And they produced a report for us a year ago, and I think we presented that to you last year. So in this facility, we would have a dark side and a light side. The dark side works well for walleye. And then the rest of the catfish and crappie and bluegills and whatnot in the other side. Then what kind of water conditioning would we need to do? Where, we'll need to warm some of that water up. We have in our game and fish hatcheries now, we have what we call isolation facilities. So that's a place. So at Boulder, for example, at the Boulder hatchery, when the water comes in, we take the water over to that ISO facility. We can bring fish in from the wild, put them in that facility, and the water that goes over those fish then leaves our system and doesn't go back into our hatchery. And so we disease test those fish in an ISO. So the isolation facility is a way to protect your main facility and be able to bring wild fish in or fish from elsewhere in. And that's something we're lacking we need more of in our culture system now. And so we've built a couple of those into this facility. They talked about different kinds of water systems. So the RAS is a recirculating aquaculture system. So you just use this, run the same water over the fish, and replace evaporation. Where a partial recirculation is you recirculate some, but add some fresh water to that. They recommend that we do both of those. We have in the proposal a brood room if we need to have our own brood fish to get eggs from. We have domestic broods now, for example, of rainbow trout or cutthroat trout. And then use these self-cleaning tanks and have a big emphasis here in this proposal on biosecurity. So that's a sketch of the first version, and already we know that we won't do it exactly like that. But on your right, upper right is the kind of the dark room for walleye, and then the left side we'd have catfish and other things in there. And then this lower right would be some water treatment and isolation facilities, and then brood room, and then some office space. So from their final report, they gave us the biological programming review for walleye, catfish, bluegill, black and white crappie, largemouth bass, tiger muskie, sauger, and they basically said you can do what you thought you could do. So, but confirmed that the facility as we have it would meet our current needs and have some room to grow. They looked at our recirculation recommendations, provided some additional thoughts on that, things that we might do a bit differently. They looked at our kind of the plumbing, at a hatchery, the plumbing is a big part of the whole facility. They looked at how the pipes and the size and the head and the volume of water, we think we can do about 500 gallons a minute and run that. And they thought it was beneficial to us that we actually had the infrastructure in place. And then they get to the point finally, Dirk. So how much is it going to cost? And they gave us this class. There's some different estimates on there. That $12.6 million number is their construction estimate cost. The 15.4 is kind of construction, the contingency overhead, profit bond, kind of what it's really going to cost you to build it. And then the 2.3 is the engineering, construction oversight, kind of the whole design consulting on the engineer side. So our proposed cost at this point is 17.7 million. And our request to you today is that we, approve that number, but know that we're going to start with the 2.3 or 2.5 million to do the engineering. We'll begin contracting, get engineering work on design. I think that's going to be at least a year in the works to get a design. And then when they do that, they'll get us to a final number. What the engineering estimate here is what they call a ballpark estimate by engineers. And they say it's minus 50% to plus 100%. So as your plans become more refined, the engineers are more comfortable giving you a more precise number. So we'll start into engineering and then proceed and come back to you if needed for any other changes in funding. And so I think that's the end of my fast pass through a review of the SPEES facility, and would be happy to answer questions or have Guy and Lars answer questions.
Questions? Lots of lights are coming on. Go ahead, Commissioner Roberts.
President, I noticed that what about smallmouth bass? Why don't we ever talk about smallmouth bass?
We don't stock them.
Why? Because it seems to me that the most prevalent fish we have in the bass is the smallmouth around here.
The largemouth bass that we've stocked have been more of a pond, local, smaller water fishery where we have smallmouth. They're self-sustaining. They don't need stocking to have more of them. And we have not wanted to have more smallmouth fisheries. We haven't added smallmouth fisheries. So from a management demand, we're stocking those largemouth bass in places where they don't reproduce, and we provide a more of a community fishery.
So, but back to the smallmouth, I mean, it's the most adaptable to the state, the smallmouth would be. I mean, the largemouth, like you said, you don't want them to reproduce. You put them in small ponds and you don't want them to reproduce.
No, we put them where they don't. I mean, we're happy if they would, but there's just places where they're not reproducing. So that's why we stock them, because they don't reproduce on their own.
So, and then another thing is, I was just wondering what it seems to me that we're emphasizing the walleye the most is that direction.
That is the number one priority. It'd be walleye and then channel catfish.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bell.
Mr. President, thank you. So the dollars that you talked about, that engineering, those engineering dollars, those are gonna be in budget. We're not approving anything right now, but we're gonna move forward. That'll be in budget next year.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about budget here, since you brought the question up there, Commissioner Bell. So, what we're asking for here is approval of that amount and approval to start moving forward with the project. Kind of like we did with Jackson Housing. Along the way, as major expenditures came along, we would come back to the commission, approve each major expenditure as it goes. That expenditure would likely be actually it could be spent before next year's budget, because we want to start moving with it now before costs go up even more. Potentially have to do an add to this budget. I don't know if you've thought through that yet, Dirk, but it probably needs to go into this year's budget as a one-time. Are you on the same line of thought?
Commissioner Bell, Director Nesvik, I agree with you 100%. So the ask today is really to approve us to proceed, and this would be in addition to the current budget, to add the $2.3 million to the current budget to approve us to begin working to hire engineers and to proceed with plans. But as we've done with other projects in the past, there's been an earmark of some of the commission reserve fund to say, here's this 15.4 million that we kind of have a identified for this project. But when we're ready to go to construction and we've been through engineering, then we would return to the commission and say, here's what we did. Here's what you approved in this 2.3 million for engineering. We're now ready to do construction, and it's going to be 15.9 million, or hopefully it's not 27.4. We hope it's in the ballpark of where that is. And we believe one of our intentions is to work with the engineers and the budget that you provide us to try to size that building to fit the budget and the highest needs for the agency.
The other thing I would, just to make sure we're clear on semantics. So, think about our budget in 4 chunks. Think about our account and all of our cash resources in 4 parts. One is our current budget that you've approved. That's our checking account. That's what we're spending out of right now. It's set aside. The second part is the true reserve. So that reserve is like our rainy day account. And we're not talking about tapping into the reserve for this project. The reserve is untouched. It's in the highest return investment pool that we can have it in. And that's totally set aside. The next chunk of the 4 parts is those projects like Jackson Housing that the commission has already approved. So that cash is sitting in the bank. It hasn't been spent yet, but it's pulled off to the side. And then the last piece is what's left. So that's the discretionary money that the commission has available to them by today's accounting. This money that we're talking about would be pulled out of that discretionary portion and set aside with those other projects that have been approved, but we haven't funded yet. And that allows us, when we give you budget information, to provide you real time. This is what's left in your discretionary account for your discretionary spending. The one thing that I looked at when these guys came and talked to me about this is I would be concerned about pulling $17 million if we had to do it all in 1 year. But we know this is going to be a several-year project, and we know that we can adjust other one-time spending so that this is actually pulled out of multiple years worth of additional revenues that are up and above and beyond our expenditures, which gives me some more comfort because it is such a high dollar amount. I think I'm very supportive of doing this. I think it's critical for protecting our state from quagga, zebra mussels, and other bad critters, other AIS. But it's also critical to meeting, secondarily, in my view, to meeting the needs of our anglers. We just talked about walleye. Walleye are in significant demand in our state from a lot of anglers. You look at the reservoirs where we have walleye, and those are some of the most heavily used reservoirs. So for those two reasons, I think there's really not a lot of other great options. I think it's important that we do this now. And I think we've got the financial resources to do it.
Mr. President,
Go
so.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Director. I agree with all of that, and I'm curious with what that timeline on when we answer questions and talk about this, knowing that none of the costs are going to go down. So it's better to do this now, but also none of the costs on how much those fish and what that costs for us to go get those fish every single year. None of those things are going to go down. What the return on our investment, how many years do you basically make this up? Is it 8 years or 10 years? And I don't know if that's possible to find out, but I'm curious on that, that if we have maybe some of our financial people look at that a little bit more and so that we can answer that question, that would be helpful. But I think one of the big things that you can't put a cost on is taking away that exposure from possible AIS from other states. And so I think that's something that probably can be said, but there's not really a way to put a cost on that.
And I think I can answer the first part of your question. Really, our expenses right now, compared to when you look at it relative to $17 million, they're not very much. We're trading, for the most part, we're trading fish. So the fish don't cost us any money. We got money tied up in a little bit of personnel costs and some fuel to go and transport these importations into the state. But as you highlighted, I think where you really look at return on investment is, what would it cost if we have to respond to an invasion of zebra mussels into one of our reservoirs or into a municipal water system? What are the costs if we don't have walleye angling anymore because we can't get walleyes anymore to our state and to our revenue as far as fishing license revenue if we're not providing that opportunity anymore? That's hard to quantify, but when you look at that, you would look at it from that perspective, it's not very many years until you've probably made up the cost of $17 million up front.
Mr. Jolovich, go ahead.
What does that change as far as what goes out of state? You said we trade. Does that stop the trade, or do we still, I guess you could say, sell fish to other places? Or
Mr. President, Commissioner, it'll change how we do it. Now we take fish to people. We may still provide fish to them and maybe they come get them. I don't know exactly how that will look. I know that, we have a hell of a trout system and we're the envy of a lot of people. We have disease-free status. People really clamor to get stuff from us. The fish trading business has not been run by accountants. It's been run by fish biologists, fish hatchery managers who are good neighbors. And so we may continue to provide eggs or fish to some of our neighbors. It'll be different, and I'm not sure. So that's a long answer to say I don't know, but it'll change.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I looked at this pretty strongly. I had some conversations with Chief Osterlin and I looked into that, what the director was talking about, the cost per year. It seems that it's almost insignificant in a sense because of the fact that we're trading fish. But in my mind, just the idea of having our folks not having to drive clear to Arkansas in a big diesel driven truck in all kinds of weather and stuff, the safety factor is very big to me. I think if we can keep our people in Wyoming and do what we need to do, it's probably a pretty good idea. And that has no real cost, but yet it does cost on our people. So
Mhm.
I think that's a positive stroke for it too, in my opinion.
I agree, sir.
Go ahead, John.
Commission President Brokaw and Commissioner Ladwig. One other thing too, just to add is, our sources where we're getting our cool and warm water fish, those options are becoming more and more limited. So every year, it's just going to take one thing at all those other states that we get our fish from currently, or that stops our trades. Here just a few years ago, our numbers that we got walleye from the state of North Dakota went down 20%. Fortunately, the good administration in the state of North Dakota said, we'll take that 20% hit ourselves as well and not let it affect the state of Wyoming. And because if it would have went the other way, if they could have just stayed with their 100% and then cut us, and then we wouldn't have had any walleye at all. So that's one thing.
Thanks. Thanks, Guy.
Go ahead, Commissioner Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, I wanted to comment that I support this. And it's not just because it's 5 miles from my house. I think when the risk of some AIS getting into this state, it's a miracle to me and a testament to the work of you and everybody at the department that we haven't seen it yet. But the thought of having something like that come into this state petrifies me in terms of the cost to the state to clean it up, if it's even possible, and the consequences and the damages that would flow for decades if something like that were to happen. Yeah, it's a big number, but you've obviously taken it very, very seriously, as have we, about calculating it and seeing what you need and being reasonable. So I support it. And I guess this is just a comment about how I see the perspective of $17 million now. And anything reasonable that would lower the risk would look very worth it should something happen. So thank you, Mr. President.
Certainly.
But just one more question.
Go ahead,
Mr. President.
Commissioner
So,
Bell.
and I think it's on, in that presentation, there was numbers on how many fish we're getting. That facility would be able to provide that many fish, or would it have some scale up? Could we go higher than that?
Mr. President, Commissioner Bell, it's our intention with the design and the work that we're going to do with the consultants is to talk about how, with these design engineers, is to meet our current demand and then provide flexibility for the future. One of the things that we've talked about as well is just in the design, if we build this building in a I don't know, I'll call it, because I'm not an engineer, I'll call it modular. If we build it to meet our needs now with some room for the future, but we also design into it, like, let's build the plumbing and let's build the building structured in a way that if in 20 years people wanted to add to it, we wouldn't do things today that would make it harder for them. So at least build it so you could, if you wanted to add on to it, you could. And that's just been some of our conversations about how to be prudent with the available funding, meet the most important needs, and also understand that there may be a additional need in the future.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Commissioner
President,
Roberts.
I just want to renew my concern with throwing it all of our everything in one basket with species again. I'm still petrified of having all that facilities that we have on one particular hatchery. So I just want to renew my concern on that because, I mean, we've had a few close calls with it already. And I just want to make sure that that's the right direction the department deems appropriate to go instead of another hatchery around the state. So.
Mr. President, Commissioner Roberts, we looked hard at that. We raise half our trout in the state at that place. And those people work darn hard there. But it's where we have water. And if we were to go develop at a new place, we'd need to be able to buy the water, buy a property that had the water rights that could meet that need. With that amazing water source that we have at Spees, that's what lets you build a hatchery. And so when we looked around at water temperature, water quantity, the real estate, the place that we could actually do it, we felt that was the best alternative, thinking hard about that concern. So I hear your concern, and we knew that was the place, aside from buying new real estate, to go.
Oh, Director, I thought you were pointing somewhere. Go ahead.
No, I did want to, that's one of the things that we have here that makes this more cost effective for us. And that, I mean, if we had to go let's say we had to go build a new hatchery because it wasn't biologically or otherwise feasible to do it at the same facility that we were already raising fish, and the cost would be double at least.
Or more.
So we do have this benefit. And what I told these guys when we first started planning this is you need to look at every single existing hatchery we have and see what makes the absolute most sense, where we have the best water, obviously, but where we also had the room to grow. And this is what their analysis came to. So I was comfortable with it. The other point I wanted to make is, part of this analysis, part of the risk analysis, if you will, of spending this kind of money on this problem that went through my brain is, okay, so what if tomorrow, after let's say the day after this thing's complete, we've spent $17 million on it, there's a miracle cure for quagga and zebra mussels, and all we got to do is sprinkle some pixie dust on the water and we don't have it anymore. Where would we be sitting with this facility? And the bottom line is that even if that threat went away, our constituents will continue to want and be ready to pay for the resource that a warm, cool water hatchery will provide. So we won't be out anything. We'll still be producing fish within our state, not having to rely on somebody else, just like we already do now for trout. So I think it's important for the commission to be thinking 2 and 3 steps ahead, but also know the department has as well, as we've considered this. And I just don't think we're going to be out anything even if AIS gets solved 5 years from now.
Mr. President, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, since someone, I think it was Commissioner Bell, mentioned real estate, what is your footprint at Spees? How many, just rough idea, how many total acres and how many are you sitting on? You're not going to be building up against the boundaries of your real estate in Spees, I assume? Just a rough idea.
My name's Lars Alsager, Spees Superintendent, President Brokaw, Director Nesbitt, Commission.
You're the guy who's never called me. I'm 5 miles away. Never called.
Come on out anytime.
I'm not real mobile, so you're excused.
We got a cart for you. We can get you around. We're sitting on 51 acres.
Okay.
At our facility. The area that we're talking about putting in this facility is 285 by 198. That's not the entire footprint of the building that we have designed. Obviously, we're scaling that down slightly from that. But we do have the resources and the space available for sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Dirk, commission's had their go at you. So here's my thoughts. I recognize the need for more fish in Wyoming, more opportunity, without a doubt. I recognize Spies has the best water source. From a financial perspective, I have no problem with the 2.3 to get you started with the engineering and design. On your large number of 17.7, I would like to do the same as we did with Jackson Housing, is get a cap and then hold contractor to no, I can't remember the words, but you can't just keep adding stuff onto it. You know, that you do good due diligence and get a contractor that's gonna fill the bill. The other thing I would say is if we're doing 1.5 million fish today that we're importing, now it's what we're going to try and grow. I'd sure look at building a facility that will grow 1.8 that could be expanded. And I like your idea of putting an infrastructure for expansion that we can add on because the demand will not go down. So it's kind of like a cabin barn. You build it as big as you think you need it. And the first time you need it, it's too small. So, you know, shoot for the sky. I'd like to have a little more discussion about, Brian, is this a 2 or 3 year obligation that we'd pull from restricted or our discretionary funds to meet the 17, or you wanted to do that all in 1 year?
My recommendation to the commission is that you approve today a cap of an expenditure of $17 million. And that you direct the commission, or I'm sorry, you direct the department to come back to you with each major expenditure for approval. But that we pull that off aside today. Now, is that actually going to mean that today?
We fund it.
Yeah, we're not funding $17 million today. You're giving us that. It's not a blank check. It's a check that can go as high as 17 million.
Yep.
But along the way, as we're writing those checks, we're going to come ask for approval. That's what we're asking you to do. I would like to, for the accounting purposes, pull that money out of the discretionary account now, even though it's not all going to get spent right now,
Mhm.
and have it on the side and
Put it in savings account.
yeah.
Okay, I'm tracking.
So, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Nezik, I think what I'm hearing is that the department recommends the commission vote to approve setting aside 17.7 million for a cool warm water facility at Spies and authorize the department to spend 2.5 million on engineering for that project.
Get started.
Yes. And then, like the director said, that money will be set aside, so we know it's there. And it won't be part of your discretionary money anymore, but we know it's there for the future. And that can be spent over multiple years, just like housing in Jackson. But we know we've got a commitment from a commission in the department for the project. We've got the finances to pull it off, but we'll come back to you. We do want approval to spend the 2.5. After that, we'll come back to you, and that number, that 17.7 will surely change, but at least we've got a budget set aside for it right now. That would, I think, make us most comfortable.
I believe that's the intent of the commission. Commission, is that correct? Is that where you're comfortable?
One other quick point, Mr. President. I didn't mention this, I don't believe. I've directed our folks to also go and start looking for some partners. We know that, I'm sure it's not going to be Trout Unlimited to go help us grow walleye, but there are definitely some partners. We could even engage in a discussion with the Wildlife Fund, but to go and look for some additional help outside just commission funds to help pay for this. If we receive some additional help, that just helps this whole resourcing problem. But we also know that if we don't find any, we've got it set aside and we've got approval from the commission to charge forward on this project.
Yeah, let me ask you this question. When we were talking about Wyoming being premier in raising trout, I'm comfortable with, and we get out of the trading business, but we still have a demand for our trout. I'm okay if it's ethical, is my question, to charge for at least our raising costs back to our states that want that. Is that possible?
Mr. President? Yeah, it's possible. Our partners take care of us sometimes and we take care of them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be really happy not to have a discussion about charging for trading right now.
Yeah, I don't know how that looks, but I think
I
it's
don't
okay
especially want a commission policy on it. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think Commissioner Masterson, go ahead, sir.
I agree completely with the motion as structured by the deputy director. I would just like to make sure that every meeting we have 2 minutes on here's where we are. Just like I've only been on since March, but every meeting we got a couple minutes about the Jackson housing project. And given the amount of money, it doesn't have to be very detailed or anything, but this is where we are. This is how much we've spent. This is what, how things are looking. I don't think that needs to be a part of the motion per se, but I guess I'm asking the director, if you'd like it as part of the motion to bind future commissions, fine, but I'll do it. But I know it's your policy. You are incredibly transparent. But I just want that every time.
Yeah, so first of all, I wouldn't want any kind of commission directive that only gives Dirk 2 minutes every meeting, because ain't gonna happen. But no, my commitment to you is, and therefore the commitment of these two gentlemen is that you will get an update at every commission meeting. And we will make sure that happens, just as we've done with Jackson Housing.
And Mr. President, Director, you understand that I don't question your commitment whatsoever, or Dirk's, or anybody with the department. I do not question your transparency and your communication. It's more, if we all got hit by a bus, I'd like there to be something. I want to be assured that we hear and that we know what's going on.
Yeah, we're just gonna make it part of our standard agenda. We have agenda items that, like Jackson Housing, it's just been on there for just the
Perfect.
standard till it's done.
Perfect.
And we'll do that in the future.
The only
Thank
thing I'd like to correct, Commissioner Masterson, is John Kennedy doesn't get to make motions in my meetings. So I think how he stated it, it does need a supporter. And so if you would like to move that motion, Commissioner Masterson.
Thank you for the correction, Mr. President. Yes, I would make the motion as so well captured by Deputy Director Kennedy.
Perfect. Is there a second to the motion?
Second,
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Bell. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, I just had
Yes, sir.
one question. So I've seen some economic impacts to, big game hunting and things like that. I would like to know if there's any way to capture some economic impact amounts for what walleye bring to places like, Keyhole, Moorcroft, Pine Haven, Douglas, Glendo, Sinclair, Seminole, Alcova. Those kind of places seem to be, there's a lot more walleye fishermen than there used to be. And there certainly is some significant impact, especially when we're seeing a lot of those from Colorado, South Dakota. They do it in South Dakota. They do it in North Dakota, Nebraska coming in. I know those impacts are huge on the Missouri River system, but I'm seeing a lot more of those out of state plates fishing walleyes in Wyoming. I'm curious if we can get some of that from DOR or tourism or something like that.
Yeah, I think, Mr. President, that there is some information that's already been put together on that, and that state parks as well as tourism both hold some of that information. And what we can do is go look at what they've got. We also can do an estimate of what fishing license sales, kind of impacts from fishing license sales. Be a little bit tough to ferret out because fishermen don't always go to the same lake every time, but try to figure out if we didn't have walleye anymore, what would that do to our fishing license sales? And I don't want to commit my folks to being real precise on that, but we can give it a shot.
There are some economic numbers available nationally that we could at least provide some scale on.
Could they be potential financial partners? Or would that be better left in the NGO world?
Who's that? Who are you talking about? Do you mean the part,
Whoever
local economies?
Commissioner Bell's talking about, yeah.
Hmm, I think they're really happy to encourage us to go forth and do good.
Probably so. I think it's probably, we start with NGOs and then any like untapped down in the 767th page of some gigantic bill, federal bill, if there's some kind of federal funding that might apply here. You know, the infrastructure law as well as the Inflation Reduction Act both have, they're still not fully implemented because they're so complicated that there may be some funding out there. And I believe when Dirk and I talked last, you guys were going to look into that, or maybe I didn't tell you to do that. I don't remember.
We made a run at one of those pots of money and I don't remember.
I think it was ARPA. It
Yeah,
was the COVID relief money.
yeah.
We went after that pot.
And we came a little below the line.
Yeah, we did.
I'm just thinking of an email that I shared with Alan, and they were trying to have their fishing tournament, and Wyoming's fishing was so terrible, they couldn't have their tournament in Glendo anymore. And I'm like, well, okay, guys, pony up some money. If you want better fishing in Glendo, get out your checkbook, is the people I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I struggle with,
It's so bad. There's how many people there?
yeah,
Okay.
I struggle with somebody having a hard time catching a fish at Glendo. Even John Kennedy catches fish at Glendo. But
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
and just in the, towards motion, I would, I'd like to see if the department would look a little bit more, and I really can't grasp my head why we're not looking at smallmouth bass a little bit more, because it's one of the largest game fish in the United States. And I would just kind of maybe reconsider something towards smallmouth. And I don't know whether they're a fish that actually needs a hatchery, but I would strongly, I'd like to see us look at a smallmouth bass more. So.
Mr.
No,
President.
yes, sir.
Commissioner Roberts, the way this facility is designed and the space that's available, as we're envisioning it now, if there's a demand by our managers to stock smallmouth bass, this facility would be able to raise them. So I think we can do that if the need is there.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or does Fish Division get their Christmas present early? Commissioner Masterson.
Commissioner Bell, I really appreciate the point about fishing impacts and trying to quantify those. It's somewhere in the packet that I received when I joined. There was a study using 2017 stats on the economic impact of big game fishing and wildlife watching to the Wyoming economy. It was done by the UW's Department of Ag and Applied Economics. So perhaps someone within the department could maybe see if there would be a follow-up study. That's certainly not a mandate coming from just me, but it might be a handy thing to have in the back pocket when the 92 people get together in Cheyenne.
Further discussion, I have a message from Ashley. She had to step off the video conference for her video link, but she's a yes on the motion. So any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve Speed's expansion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, Fish Division. 405, it's 3. All right, Chief Goicolea, you're next.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Nesvik. I'm here to provide you with some information on communications and education. All right. So again, this is part of our strategic plan to continue to work and listen to our public, engage with all of our wildlife enthusiasts and the people in Wyoming. It's a huge goal in our strategic plan. And there's this one area that I really wanted to highlight today. One of our strategies is to use new techniques and social media and email to continue communications with the public. And I really want to talk about that quite a bit today. It ties into our website project, and then also kind of give you an update on where we're at with our education stuff. So going forward, before I forget, which is why I put this in here, I wanted to give you a very quick, brief regulations update. So last year we did have the struggle with the paper regulations, with the paper shortage, and we were able to work closely with the Wildlife Division and be able to kind of pivot. And we did print some regulations, but not to the extent where we were able to give to everybody who had a license. So from that, this year we have printed regulations. They are available at all of our regional offices. We also still have digital regulations on Nextbook and the option to print at home. We have a mobile save to your device, whether it's your computer, laptop, mobile phone, etc. And then this year we did something new where we created a mobile friendly feature. So if you tried using it on your phone last year and it seemed like you had to like pan and scroll and move around, this year we made an option where you have giant buttons that get you right to where you need to be per species, per page, per option. So something new and exciting, and then also a great update. All of these have been very well received, and it's very interesting to watch the analytics on these. You know, people either love them or don't. Some people love the mobile option and the print at home. Some people prefer the paper, and therefore we have all the options available this year, and we're very happy about that. So for this presentation, I wanted to go a little deeper. In March, I kind of gave you an overview of all the things we do for communication and how we track things. In this one, I really want to talk about how we track the analytics from our print to digital to social media that all goes to our website eventually, hopefully. And so here's all the ways that we are currently tracking all of our analytics, which means typically we have a embedded QR code or a bit.ly link. And this can be on signage, posters, papers. It could be even signs at some of our hatcheries, things like that. And they link to a QR code that goes to our webpage, and then we're able to track views, unique clicks, times on the site, bounce rates, what pages people are typically going to go to next. We can tell which are going to be our most popular stories and what devices they're viewing them from. So first off, talking about the website, right now we finished the build of all the structure in August. Currently, we're reviewing and updating all of our content. In October, we're going to do some internal fine tuning and testing, and then we will be launching to the public. That announcement will be made at the next commission meeting in November for you all. And we will be doing a presentation with you all so you can see it kind of more in depth, what it looks like, how it's going to operate, things like that. So here's our 2022 social media analytics. In Facebook, we reached over 5 million people. Engagement can be as people click into different things, the amount of time they spend on that. It can be if they share it, if they go back to it, that's what we count as engagement. So you can see we have a lot of engagement. Video views, most of those are our YouTube videos. Watch time, that's in hours. Number of posts that people put up there or discuss, also ours in there. New followers, and then total followers. We have 76,000 right now. We think we can increase that number quite a bit in the coming years through a variety of different ways, but Instagram is up there as well. Again, Instagram focuses primarily on pictures, and so no written content. And so we watch that very closely. Twitter is the opposite. Twitter is just very short text. And then YouTube, which is mostly our wildlife videos. We have over 1 million views on that, 30,000 hours. We have a total of 121 videos up there right now. We're constantly adding that. We've been putting up some more trail cams and different things like that. And then our subscriber list is about 18,000. So in total for social media, the department put out 469 posts in 2022, and we reached over 6 million people. There's the engagement, the views, the watch time. We did get a lot of new followers last year, so that was great. And then going forward on this, 123,000 in total. So we like to go in and dig a little deeper and see exactly what is the top performing content for each platform or tool that we use. Of course, application information is always very popular, wildlife photos, videos, our success stories, people love them. A couple examples there. News gets a lot of attention. And then of course, photos and videos, even without links. And oftentimes we'll see different comments, things like that. Instagram, very traditional posts, definitely because this is the picture one, focuses on wildlife imagery, carousels, people love that, how-to content, and then going to reels and stories. YouTube, our trail cams are our biggest thing, our fish hatcheries following that, how-to content, and then YouTube shorts, which those are very short videos that can be any of those above. Whether we're showing you something that the department did, showing you how to do something, or discussing how you can do something. Podcasts, we do our own internal podcasts, and those are very popular, especially the hunt season outlook, Powder River mule deer study this last year. And then with the Saratoga Lake, the illegal fish introductions was a very interesting topic on podcasts. Twitter. This platform is now called X. We're not quite adapted to that yet, but it's constantly changing. It's very traditionally popular with topics of the media. People have something to say, get it out in a very short text content. One of the areas that we wanted to delve a little deeper in this year was to track our winter communications. The media team, the comms team did a whole lot of work to be very proactive with winter conditions and winter communications. They wanted to get ahead of it. They did a multi-level campaign that went through all the platforms to really give the public all the information they could need, whether it be what's going on with wildlife, what to expect for hunting, what are we talking about, those kinds of things. And we saw that these efforts definitely had a lot of engagement. Nearly 214,000 people. We had more than 311 comments, likes, shares, links, all those kinds of things. Email. Again, with winter conditions on our email, we have a variety of different email lists that we send out. And so we try to typically send those emails to a very specific demographic. So if it's a hunting update, those go to our hunters. If they are, we sent updates to everybody for the shed antler horn collecting being postponed because of winter conditions, additional cuts to licenses. We let our previous license holders know about that. And this was extremely popular. We had over 1.5 million. We said hunters talk about this in our communications, but they went to different hunting blogs. They went to different hunting arenas, outlets, things like that. As our information is shared, typically it's shared over and over and over again. So when you look at 1.5 million, this is not just Wyoming hunters, obviously. This is non-residents. This is people in other states. These are people who are very interested in hunting in Wyoming, and then where they've been most interested and curious about it. This last year in the middle of 2022, we acquired a media scraping tool, and that is something that goes through and scans all of the internet and says, we put in very specific words that we wanted to find, and we find what they're saying. It's a really amazing tool. We're not quite 100%. I would say I'm not 100% fully integrated into the use of it, but our PIO is. And one of the really interesting things is we can see the reach of a topic we put out there. And then when it's reshared or brought up in a blog somewhere, or somebody's discussing it in comments, even if we're not catching it, this tool will. And you can see week by week, day by day, topic, all the time. It sends us reports. We can put them in graphs, give different analytics. And so it's kind of funny. We were talking about this graph that kind of shows where we're at, and it said, oh, well, you're down 22%. And somebody was like, oh, that's kind of sad. You're down 22% this week. And actually we were like, no, last week was kind of a rough week in the media. We're really happy to be down. So we watched that as well. And something else about this media tool that we're very interested in is public sentiment. And we can see if people are saying very positive things about the department or a project or a topic, or if it's negative, and we'll line those out as well. So it's a really interesting gauge and something that gives us a far greater reach than some of the other media tools we've been using. So oftentimes we do different campaigns. This is not all of our campaigns. This is just some examples that you've probably seen. So for us, a campaign is something bigger. It means that we are going to develop kind of a strategy across multiple platforms and then assess how it's going, devise kind of like that choose your own adventure option, where if you go this way and it goes really well, then we'll build off that and build to here. If it's kind of, the people want more information, there's some misunderstanding out there, we'll do something different. And so here's some of our previous campaigns. Of course, we do CWD, AIS. We're also always trying to find new ways that look very modern to engage license holders and our sportsmen to decide, get that awareness out there, brand recognition, clean, drain, dry. There's a lot of marketing tools in here. There's logos. There's some very quick yes or no catches people's attention, different things like that. And then we try to translate these across multiple platforms from, if we're starting on a news release, then maybe we'll go smaller for social media, then we'll put something out in email and hopefully see how it goes. So we have ongoing ones that we always talk about: bear safety, boating. Something new we've been working on is careers, and then upcoming, we're going to do a lot more for management topics and things like that. So that's kind of all of my overview on what we've been doing in the last year on social media analytics. I'll let you know, I'll stop here for a second if you have questions before I talk about education.
Do we have questions? Nish, I do. On any of those platforms, when the comments start coming in, they're negative or false.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have someone to go in and clarify or
Sometimes.
rectify those comments?
Mr. President, members of the commission, sometimes is what I'll say, and sometimes we don't. We kind of have a standard guidelines of what we want to tell the public and when. We will follow the comments, but we try very much not to engage or get into, kind of a defensive situation with the public. Sometimes we think, okay, this strand of comments, there's 75 comments here. Most of them are negative. We need to do more. And that's for us a very telling place to say, let's put out some more information. Let's put it in different places. Let's drill down and make it very much more specific. And we'll try to do those kinds of things, but typically we don't. Sometimes we will. Sometimes if it's a benign topic that we're very comfortable, like I can't get a Hunter Ed course here. Well, yes, you can.
Mhm.
Here's where you can find it. We'll sometimes put that out there, but most of the time we don't. And in fact, we're working on a strategy that's going to start as soon as the website project concludes to really do more to address public comments, whether they're coming in through social media, the email communications, on the phone, et cetera, to kind of give the department and the employees some more guidance on here's ways you should, approach this or direct them or provide more information without it coming across as combative.
Very good.
One general comment, Mr.
Yeah, go
President.
ahead.
And I know, and back to the printed pamphlets, people really struggle with not having a printed pamphlet. Most of what I hear is people really like the printed. I mean, it's just, it's a tradition to them, was what you say. So just so we're cognizant of that. Another thing is, thank you for, for the mule deer edition from in Wyoming Wildlife. That was very spot on. It was really well timed. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, sir.
first, Mr. President, when I had my Senate confirmation hearing, the one that Commissioner Bell did not have to
Correct.
do, I want you to know that none of them asked me if I would ask too many questions at a commission meeting and unduly extend it. I just want you to know, never came up. Nish, thank you. I appreciate your work. On Wyoming Wildlife Magazine, you shipped me a whole stack of them of past issues that were in a closet. And I took them around to various doctors' offices during my visits, probably like, you know, a stack like this. And I am not kidding. The next time I went back, they were gone. Every single one of them was gone. So I don't know what you do with that. So it's a testament to the work of you and your folks. But wow, if you've got some more laying around, if you've got old ones sitting in a box somewhere, I know a whole bunch of offices that would take them, and they're enjoyed.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, thank you very much for that. We have a strategy we're going to work on next year for that, and I'll be presenting on the magazine in January to you all. But thank you for the feedback.
I think your analytics are fascinating and you can scrub comments, and I knew most of what you were saying, but I still have paper regulations, my own self.
I'm not done yet.
My son's gone, well, yeah, you are. My son's gone full digital and he loves it and he can whip through, and I'm trying. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Well, it's fun to have the paper ones. You leave them on the counter and your kids look at them and they mark them up and they, you know. QR codes.
Mhm.
When someone scans the department's QR code, do we capture who that person is when they do that, or is it just one way?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, we do not capture who they are. We could. That is an option, but we don't right now at this time. What we do though is we've been really exploring, we have a QR code generator, and we will put different QR codes that go to the same place. So for example, we sent all of the licensing agents a poster with a link to the regulations, and their QR code was different than any QR code we gave to anybody else, just to see how much traffic they were getting and exposure and how many people were clicking on them. And then, as Chief Wiltinger said, you know, we put a QR code on the Jackson Housing Project. That one is a distinct one just for that sign. So we will know how many people are actually using that and how much traffic.
Brilliant. Has the department ever considered its own freestanding app instead of the department on?
Did you like freeload this?
This is actually an original thought of mine.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, that is the COMSA dream sometime soon, is that we would have our own app and that everything would kind of sync in a one-stop place for communication, licensing, all of those things, and the ways to find us and get in touch with us. But currently, that is still in negotiation.
That's for future niche.
I don't even know what that means. Does that cost money to have a stand-up app?
Yeah, Mr. President, it would be like a standalone app that's on your phone, so that it would be like Wyoming Game and Fish Department. And then I don't know if you've like your United app or your
iTunes?
iTunes.
That's an app?
See,
I gotta get
The little
caught up.
green bubble thing with the little.
Talk to us
cartoon
about
thing.
education. These guys are in a rabbit hole.
perfect.
I'm sorry. You mentioned email.
Mhm.
Is that the same as what those older here would have called a listserv? Same idea?
Mhm.
Okay, so people are subscribing.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, absolutely. And we have subscriber lists that are, you know, we have some people that are subscribed to all of our stuff and some that are only to our hunting update or only to this. The only problem we have with that, if they decide to unsubscribe, it then subscribes them to everything. And so we've learned that that's kind of a hole. We've actually even had department employees who have done that, and then they don't get their draw results, and other people. But so we try to tell people only subscribe to what you want to receive, and you know, then we're not overloading you with information. But
Right.
yes.
I think that's wise personally. Reddit. Do we monitor through these analytics what might appear about the department on Reddit or say Discord or something like that, where people like to go and complain?
Mr. President and Commissioner Masterson, we do. To what extent we take that information, like I said, is typically
Exactly.
just to know that we need to do a better job. We need to get more out there. We need to be more involved, more present, give better information than some of our less informed press outlets, things like that.
I couldn't agree with you more. You can't and shouldn't respond to everything, but I was curious whether the scraper tool that you were
Mhm.
talking about captured Reddit and all those things. This is the last one, I swear. I swear. My kids, who are now, 20s, early 30s, tell me that Facebook is just, people like, and that Instagram and TikTok is where younger people hang out. And obviously we want to interest young people in hunting, fishing, the outdoors, conservation. How does that play into your strategy when you talk about social media?
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, so we know that overall the age of our typical audience is between 33 and 43 years old. That's primarily the bulk of it, which if you look at our hunting demographics, that's very similar in there as well. However, we are very aware that the younger generation isn't interested in reading a lot. They don't want to take our surveys, and they don't want to spend the time at some of our public meetings. So we've tried a lot of different ways to kind of include them as well, without excluding, our traditional users and populations. And so it's a balance. I think we're very fortunate in the Comms Ed division to be able to do a lot of innovative things constantly because we're trying to stay on top of the, cutting edge technology, apps, social media, and be able to engage, but also be very mindful and cautious with some of those as well. For instance, TikTok is not allowed in Wyoming. There are other state agencies, other states that have TikTok or access to it, and they've come across some positives and some problems. And so, we just try to filter over and, we know that we can still get the users through YouTube with videos, and maybe they're not going to be quite as personable or quirky or things like that. But at the same time, we try to hold ourselves at a very high professional level for everything that we do and present on behalf of the department. So that's that other fine line as well, is just trying to know how we can engage without, undermining the work and the quality of the effort that's being done by our folks.
I agree, you do superb work. I was just curious how if you want to talk to my kids, I'm sure they give you feedback. And it's good to know that Commissioner Jolovich and I fall within the average age range of your audience. Mr. President, I swear, that's all. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. President, I dropped off on the desk for everybody, hot off the press yesterday, the education trifold that we just printed to talk about our conservation education programs in school. I presented to you all in April about these programs. We've since been working very hard with all of our collaborators on this, from the State Board of Education, the Wyoming Department of Ed, the Professional Teaching Standards Board. And then we have a number of really great partners as well, and more partners that are coming in and not listed here. However, this is kind of the overview of what we're going to send out to the schools, have in our regional offices, and try to do more to continue to promote all of our programs. So Trout in the Classroom, this is a fantastic program in collaboration with the Fish Division and Trout Unlimited. We will be we're piloting 20 schools starting in January. They'll have aquarium set up. We'll give them eggs. They'll watch the trout grow, be able to go through the whole life cycle of all of that. And then at the end, we will have a plan for their fish going forward. Some of them will go to community ponds, some of them will go to our lab, and some will go beyond. And then the National Archeries in School program, that is with NASP. And we're really excited about that. This is a rejuvenation of this program. We had it a number of years ago, and we're bringing it back. And that's where we are working with PE teachers to do archery in schools. PE teachers have already the space and, you know, the right setup to do the very physical sport of archery, and then be able to talk about how we can take it from the schools to outside the classroom with some of our other partners to, you know, archery hunting and doing archery, some of our great facilities and outdoors as well. So, and then our last program, of course, is hunter education in schools. We want to expand this. Currently, there's 22 schools doing hunter education, and we just want to be able to offer the opportunity to do more and train teachers to do hunter education with us. We are very aware of the current congressional bill that's kind of put a little bit of a damper on this discussion. However, we're very pleased to know that our governor, our congressional leaders, our state superintendent, and our director are very supportive of continuing to move forward and not lose sight of this very important Wyoming value and heritage that we have so near and dear. We also see it as very, very much educational in terms of firearm safety, wildlife identification, and being able to recognize when a firearm is not where it's supposed to be in the right application, et cetera. And sometimes awareness is one of your best weapons against fear. So anyways, going forward, we're very excited to remind and let you know that we're doing a press conference next Monday, September 18th at 10:30 in the morning at the Casper Game and Fish office. And Director Nesvik will be leading that along with the governor and the state superintendent for public education. And that will be both in person, and there's a virtual option for the press to attend as well. And a number of our partners will be there also. So this is kind of our launch going forward to all of these events. And I just wanted to kind of give you that heads up. The last thing on my list to talk to you all about is the Springer hats. So this year is the 50th anniversary of the Springer Bird Farm. And so we're going to be doing a lot of communication and outreach on that. And especially for the kids' days, they'll be receiving hats. And we also have dog bandanas and some different marketing materials to really highlight and promote this event. So.
Ish, I have a question.
Mr. President,
You said September 18th,
it's Monday. Yes, sir.
and I jogged my memory and I went to my calendar,
Yes,
and
sir.
it is Josh Corsi's birthday. But what I remember more than that is I have written down Hunter Ed, Nish, Cheyenne. Why did I do that? Am I supposed to be there?
Mr. President, you're not required. This is an invite primarily for the press to come and to be able to talk to Director Nesvik, the governor, and the state superintendent about these programs, about outdoor education, conservation education, and how going forward, what Wyoming's stance is going to be and how we can engage our kids. For us, it's definitely all under the Inspire a Kid umbrella. However, there's no requirement for Commissioner presentation. I do know that Commissioner Masterson and Commissioner Ladwig will be there in attendance. So if you'd like to join us in person or virtually, that invitation's open to any and all, but not required.
Okay. I can't remember why I put that in some conversation we had. Anything else?
No, sir.
On the first part of your presentation, you talked about the website and cleaning up and entering data and launch that thing at our next commission meeting. So you've made it through. Congratulations. That was a big load.
Mr. President, members of the committee, well, thank you. I can actually say that this was not my load. This was a huge load on the department, and it continues to be as everybody goes through their pages. We found that we have a lot of information that we really want to share out there. And to the point that we sometimes don't even realize how much is out there. And so it is a good exercise. It's kind of like spring cleaning, you know, being able to clean it all out, move into a brand new house and put it out there for everybody to enjoy. And it's going to be really, really well done and functioning super well. We have a website committee, and under the services team, IT and the chief technology officer, they've done a ton. The content people in terms of when you see our the pictures and the graphics and the color and the thoughts that went into it. And a lot of it was so good for us as a department to be able to do, you know, the marketing side of that, the brand standards, and really give that facelift to show how we want to present ourselves digitally as the department, the same way we do so well with our red shirts and green trucks. And so this is just that added layer. And it's taken a lot of people and manpower, and we're really excited. I wish I could say we're done, but hopefully in November I will,
It's close.
will be
It's
telling you
close.
that.
Well, congratulations to you and all your team. It's well done.
Thank you.
Hey, our last written agenda item for the day is Corey Johnson, HR manager.
Next to last, we got number 9.
I forgot you, John. My apologies.
Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Nesvik, I just wanted to help kick this off. This is agenda item 8. Our HR managers here today behind me, Corey Johnson, and a couple of our division chiefs, Chief Goikalia and Chief King, are going to help Corey with this presentation. Commissioner Lundvall, are you on the line? She's not back on.
IT says no.
Okay, so I just mentioned Commissioner Lundvall. This came from her, and I wanted to just provide that background to the commission. A few weeks ago, Commissioner Lundvall reached out to me and asked what it would take to get this type of information out to the commission, and I just thought that was really cool. We try to include a little bit of this type of information on our recruitment, retention, and professional development. You know, the director talks about our leadership development program. And we spend a lot of time on recruitment, retention, and professional growth, but we don't talk a lot about it with the commission. We tried to a little bit with the new commissioner orientation, but it really opened my eyes to the type of agenda items and informational presentations that we can give to you. And I encourage the commission to, you know, continue to reach out to us. And if you want to know something that we don't typically talk about at the commission meetings, because we've got all these other higher priorities and burning issues out there, we'll make time to do it. So I really appreciate Commissioner Lundvall bringing this up. I passed this on to to Corey and the chiefs, and they took it like crazy. So they're spending a lot of time on this, and they're going to work together to provide all the information to you today.
Fantastic.
President Brokaw, Director Nesvik, members of the commission. I'm very excited to be able to talk on this today. This is my first time addressing the commission, first time being asked to, and definitely excited to be able to do that, and certainly hope that I might not be the most entertaining speaker, and this might not be the most entertaining topic, but I certainly hope that you find it interesting and educational and informative. So we're going to talk about employee recruitment, retention, and some developmental opportunities that we have at Game and Fish for our employees. Does this work? It does. All right, so as the outline, I'm going to start off. I'm going to talk about position control and the hiring process, kind of how we're organized as an agency. Then Chief King is going to talk about the game warden hiring process, which has its own unique characteristics. Chief Goikalea is going to talk about career opportunities at Game and Fish. And then I'll talk again about employee development for the department. So as I stated, I'm going to talk about how we're structured organizationally at Game and Fish. What that looks like, I'm going to talk about employee types and levels, and then the hiring process. So first of all, this is how we're organized by our divisions and certainly the director's office as well. Really what I want to point out on this slide is just the diversity of what we do at Game and Fish. We have a lot of different positions, a lot of different things that we are doing. And it's certainly surprised me and amazed me when I first started with Game and Fish, how much we're involved with and how much we do. It also certainly turns into some diversity in who we are hiring, the types of employees that we need to hire to get the job done that we are trying to do. So these are our divisions. I'm not going to go into each individual category of what the divisions do. Those presentations, each one of those could take a 45-minute presentation on their own, doing a lot of different things at Game and Fish.
So where we're located, organizationally based on geography, we're in 8 different regions throughout the state. We have our headquarters in Cheyenne. We also have 10 fish hatcheries, rearing stations, 2 bird farms, 2 laboratories, 1 research facility, and 52 game warden districts, most of them in their own game warden station, and then 22 other work locations. Those other work locations, most likely a biologist working out of a home office in a regional, in a non-regional town. So in one of the regions, but not in the regional office. So we are dispersed throughout the state as well. So going into employee types, I also have this broken up based on our different divisions. So as I go through the different employee types, you can look at those divisions and you can kind of see how we have those employee types in use. So the first one there, commissioners in our HR systems, we do have commissioners as a position for game and fish. We also have 8 at-will employees. Our at-will employees are typically going to be directors, deputy directors, and division chiefs. The next 2 there are permanent and probationary employees. The way that works is the probationary employee is really in the same category of position as the permanent employee, but they have a probationary period they have to complete of 1 year, and then they become a permanent employee. The bottom 2 positions there are AWEC and TPO1 designations are for temporary employees. The AWEC is a contract employee, and I'll get into a little bit more what that means. And then the TPO1 is a temporary employee. It's less than 6 months. The contract employee would be greater than 6 months. So employee types and levels. Each position that we have, every position that we have at Game and Fish is attached to a class code. That class code designates what that position is doing, the type of work that it does. It also ties it to a pay grade so that we can pay consistently based on the work that's being done. So that first number there, 145, that's the number of biologists we have at the time of I ran this report working for Game and Fish. Those biologists range from the 08, the FWWB 08 to the 11, 08 being entry level for biologists and 11 being our principal biologists. So these 6 buckets, this is where we have the bulk of our employees are in these classifications. But we have a lot of class codes that aren't represented here. So there's a whole bunch of class codes that we don't have represented here. So just kind of a general, very generic view of how the class codes and our positions may look in a region. This is not including fish hatcheries, bird farms, which also roll into a lot of our regions. We would have fish and services would have an FWWMG 11, so a supervisor position. Underneath them, a few biologists, and then those temporary positions that help us get the work done seasonally. Wildlife would have the FWMG 13 position. 2 office managers typically report to them, a game warden supervisor in that FWGW 11, and the game wardens would roll up to them as well. That 13 would also have additional game wardens that report to them, and then also a biologist supervisor with some biologists under them as well. And then in the regions, we typically have a communication and education employee, our regional INEs. So that's a kind of a general way that we structure our regional employee base. So now that we kind of have a greater understanding of how we're structured, classifications, class codes, and positions, I'll talk a little bit about the hiring process. The first piece I'm going to focus on, the majority of this slide is the approval piece. For every position that we have, we have to have someone in that position. So to be able to start the approval process to hire for a position, we have to have a vacancy. Those vacancies come about in a variety of different ways, but suffice it to say that we need to have a vacant position to start the hiring process. In addition to a vacant position, we need to make sure that we have the funding and the budget in place for that. Also, we need to make sure that if we're doing a temporary employee, that we're fulfilling some sort of obligation or mission for the department. And then for our full-time employees, permanent probationary employees, we want to have, in addition to that vacancy, our division chiefs also discuss whether or not we want to keep it in that same classification. If we want to switch classification, there's a different process for that that takes 2 to 3 weeks typically. And once we have all that in place, we can start to fill that vacant position. So we would do that through a job posting. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about where we post our positions and what that looks like. After we post a job, we get candidates. We start to review those candidates that come in through against the minimum qualifications for the position. Also our preferences that we listed for the position. We narrow that down to who we want to interview. Once we interview, we narrow that down to who we want to give the offer to. And once an offer is extended and accepted, then if it's a contract employee, we would go through that contract process. And I want to point out that that contract process adds 4 to 6 weeks to the hiring process. So there is a definite time constraint or time addition if we're doing a contract employee. After that, we bring them on board and we do all the onboard activities, new hire paperwork, go over benefits. And we do once a month, the HR team does an orientation to cover in more depth what the department does and the benefits that we offer through the state. So going back to where we post our jobs, all positions that go through the state hiring process are automatically posted to Indeed, which is a fairly well-known and well-used search engine for open positions that people use. We also post to Texas A&M's job board. They have a lot of flow and a lot of traffic there. We post through a website called Handshake. That's a one-stop shop that allows us to send our positions, our job postings to a variety of different colleges across the country. So with one place, we can send it to the job boards for hundreds of different colleges. We also have been posting on the conservation job board, which is specific to conservation positions. And we've been using LinkedIn. Certainly encourage personnel from Game and Fish and others to follow us on LinkedIn. And when you see a job that's posted there, to share that with your networks. So those are some of the activities, some of the places that we go to recruit and to try and get these job postings in front of potential candidates. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Chief King to talk more about the game warden process.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
before you leave, I've got to ask, Texas A&M, I hear what you're saying about a flow, but how did that come about?
President Brokaw, Commissioner, I actually have no idea on that. That was something that was in place when I started. I think we've been doing that for quite some time. And I think it's really based solely on the fact that there's a lot of traffic that goes through the Texas A&M website. So we actually get a fair amount of candidates that come through that. So it's been successful for us.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions before I pass it on to Chief King?
Good afternoon, President Brokaw, Director Nesvik, and members of the commission. Just real quickly, the Texas A&M has a natural resources job board that is phenomenal, and jobs all over the world are posted there. So it's a great place for us to post our work. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the game warden hiring process. It is a little bit different than our other hiring processes. And I'm going to focus on this for 2 reasons. One is this process is a little different, but 2, it's really important for us right now. As you well know, we currently have 8 senior district vacancies in the state right now. A couple of those have been open for way too long. It is pretty frustrating for us. And so this is an important process. We do just to give you some numbers, like I said, 8 senior vacancies. Right now, we currently have 2 folks in our field training program. We have 3 that are attending the Law Enforcement Academy right now, and then 2 more that will attend the academy in January. And And then we also have a hiring process that's underway right now. So I'll step through and I'll show you where we're at in that process as I go through this. Just so you know, there are statutory requirements that pertain to hiring game wardens. We have to use a competitive process. We also have all of our folks meet qualifications through post peace officer standards and training. You can see the long list of qualifications there for post certification. So our minimum qualifications for the game warden job require a bachelor's degree. Now, historically, we were pretty strict in that degree had to be a wildlife management degree or something closely related. We have softened that up quite a little bit. Just in my time as chief, we have gone to the point where we'll accept almost any bachelor's degree as long as we have a minimum of 20 hours of wildlife related coursework. It was tough for me to get there, but in order to have enough candidates within our pool, that was one of the concessions that we've made. So our initial testing process, as Corey described, we will announce the job, we'll accept applications, we'll review the applications and their college transcripts. That's our initial pre-screening. From there, we'll set up an online interview where we'll just have a couple of regional supervisors or game wardens interview folks, really quick Google Hangout type survey, just a couple of questions. It's either a pass fail. From there, we send folks some information on online psychological testing through our psychologists that we contract with. And then we also send them 2 different background questionnaires, life history questionnaires, one from our psychologist and the other from our law enforcement section that we use for background checks. From there, our process consists of, as we narrow down the list of candidates that we're interested in, we bring folks to Cheyenne for a full week of testing, and that's where we're at right now in the current process. So here in 2 weeks, we have 21 candidates coming to Cheyenne that will go through these phases. We contract with a couple of people to run our polygraph process. Our contract psychologist is there. We have some continued testing that he does, and his process includes a in-person evaluation. We run them through a game warden knowledge exam, job suitability profile, and then board interviews. We also have them sign background paperwork and releases so that we can do background work if we offer them a job. You know, this process is pretty extensive. It does take a lot of time. We generally get it right, though. I mean, every once in a while we get it wrong, and usually we find a way to promote those folks up to chief game warden and put them in a place where they can't do any harm. But but generally our process works extremely well. We get really phenomenal candidates through this process, and you know, we have a couple of our younger game wardens here today, and I wish they could close their ears or we could turn the microphone off. But truth is, by the time we get through our process, we make job offers and we hire these entry-level game wardens. They're folks that could write their ticket to about any other agency that's out there. They're top hands. We're pretty proud of that.
It's fortunate we don't go through the same process to hire division chiefs.
So, you know, at the end of our week-long testing process, we'll meet with our psychologist. We'll review his findings. We'll go through all of the work so far, and we'll make conditional job offers. Those conditional job offers are dependent on, again, one more visit with our psychologist and then our background checks. And we currently have department employees. We have 3 of them that have been trained in doing background checks. They go forth and do the actual background checks on our candidates. They'll go and interview friends and family members and past employers and do quite an extensive job of really looking into these candidates. and making sure that they're suitable for our work. So our brand of law enforcement is unique. It's definitely fills a unique niche in the law enforcement world, but it's still law enforcement work, and it's still high liability work, and therefore it's important for us to go through this extensive process to find the right people. I do want to mention our recruitment, retention, and training unit. So this is a new program for us that we just stood up about a year ago. We're still, it's going to take some time to really get this program running and being really effective, but it's really been an exciting program for us to get going. It's come at a crucial time for us. We really have the need for a more focused effort to go find the best candidates, get them hired, and then once we hire them, make sure that we're training them effectively and quickly, and that the candidates we're bringing on board get the same consistent training across the state. Historically, we had this luxury of hiring folks and they'd stay in a contract position for a long time, and that worked pretty well for us, for the agency. Maybe not so much for the folks that were in contract positions forever, but we don't have that luxury anymore. We have folks that we need to get them trained and get them to work in a district as quickly as we can. Our game warden ranks, again, we hire folks at an entry level, promote them to a senior game warden. Our regional access coordinators are all law enforcement post certified. They're at the senior game warden level. And we also have a small unit, our investigations unit, which most of the folks that are in that unit have come up through the game warden ranks. Again, our brand of law enforcement's unique. We're limited in our enforcement powers, and we're also unique in that we are one of the last states where our game wardens still are hands-on wildlife managers, a jack of all trades. They do damage, public relations, nuisance wildlife. In many places, they're the only department employee there, and so anything game and fish wildlife related, they get called upon to do. Certainly, very, very wonderful job. I think it's the best in the world, but I'm a little biased. Before I pass the microphone on, I did just want to mention quickly, my focus has been on the game warden hiring process. In terms of the other jobs in our division, the wildlife division, when we go and recruit for a scientist or a wildlife biologist, the competition is crazy right now. We see a lot of competition. We recruit very well qualified, highly educated candidates with great experience. It's just kind of a different world on that side of the equation than it is on the game warden side. The game warden side, we're struggling, as is most agencies. But again, once we get through the process, we find some fantastic candidates. So I'll stop there and turn the time over to Nish.
Mr. President, members of the commission, my portion of this is really to talk about kind of how we talk about the agency. We go to a lot of career fairs, we do some marketing, we try to get the word out through all of the media platforms that I discussed with you earlier. And we've been trying some different ways to even be more innovative on that and track that. So career fairs, events, communication tools, again, volunteering. We also try to get people to really consider a future with game and fish through education programming that inspire a kid. You know, the goal is ultimately that we inspire them someday to come work for us. And so those are some of the things that I just wanted to cover quickly today. So many of these slides all of my slides right now are coming directly from career fair PowerPoints that we use going forward. So yeah, we do get to talk about, you know, there's more than 800 species that the Wyoming Game and Fish Department manages, and that our mission is we take it really serious, as you know, and then that we spend a lot of time working with people. And sometimes we work with more people than wildlife, and who these people are and what they do and what we're looking for. We do emphasize that, you know, you're going to need to work with people internally and externally. And that's a really important trait within the department. We do so much collaboration. And then there is a lot of variety. There's variety to our jobs. There's variety to the species that we work with, but also there's a lot of variety to the positions within the department. And sometimes it's not well known externally that, you know, we definitely are well known for our game wardens and our biologists and our fisheries, as we should be, habitat, et cetera. But we also have, you know, accountants and IT people and graphic designers, and that's really important too. And every single person that you speak to within the department will tell you that at the end of the day, we all have a love of Wyoming and wildlife, and that's why we're here. So that's something that we share when we go out and talk about this. Most of the positions within the department, as Corey said, you know, require a bachelor's or a master's degree for some. And then one of the other ways that we work really hard to recruit is through volunteer opportunities, giving people exposure to the work we do in the field. And this year we have a new volunteer management software online. And so we've seen a lot of success with that. And we know that going forward, we're going to be able to, because it's digital and it's online, if somebody comes and volunteers with us, we'll be able to email them in the future and say, hey, come do this other project, or hey, here's a job, you know, that's in the fish division or the wildlife division or with us, et cetera, going forward. Hunter education is also a really great place to do recruitment. We spend a lot of time talking about the work we do, why it matters, why, you know, our students should care and why the public cares. And then again, youth. So summer camps, we poll our summer camp students every single year, and 96% of them said they want to work for Game and Fish at the end of the summer after going to camp with us. Typically it's one or none that say they don't want to come to work for us. And then we do a lot of different opportunities with schools, with the different partners, NGOs, et cetera. And then we also look a lot to our seasonal positions to gain, you know, there's people who will work for us and then go somewhere else, and then they'll come back and work for us. And we track that as well. A couple of months ago, we did a whole article feature in the magazine, Camper to Colleague, talking about some of our people who have started that way and how they're here today. The other piece that's fairly new to the department is the fellowship program, which is a program developed by Director Nesvik. And the goal of that was a partnership with the University of Wyoming, specifically the Hobbs School, to gain on the ground working experience for students interested in natural resource or wildlife careers going forward. This is a very competitive project. I was able to sit on the application and interview panel last year, or the year before, it's blurring now, the year before. And I was so impressed and so amazed with the quality of students that were applying to be part of this fellowship program. I wish we could have hired them all. And so they're required to keep their GPA up, attend their seminars, do 20 hours of approved volunteer work with the department, and then also do 2 paid summer internships with us, which that's across all the divisions in the department. And that's been amazing. We are going into our 3rd year of this. In fact, we have fellowship orientation this Friday with our incoming fellows at the University of Wyoming. And it's been just a dynamic program. You'll see some of them at some of our outreach events, and you probably saw some last year as well, like Mule Deer Days, the UW game. One of the things that we found through these programs is that we learn a lot too. The fellows came to us last year and they said, hey, there's things that the university isn't teaching us that we really need to know to work with you guys. And these are some of the lists they gave us. You know, we need to know how to drive our 4x4 and off-road. We need to know how to hook up to a trailer and back it up. Horseback riding would be helpful. What kind of clothing do we need for hiking with you all in the backcountry? GPS, watercraft, snowmobiles, 4-wheelers. So that was a really enlightening thing for us, and to have these discussions with the university. So something a little in there. Last bit on this is, of course, the website. It's going to have its own new and improved career page. This is just a snippet of it. I'll show you this in November, but it's going to also say, you know, here's everything, kind of what the 3 of us told you today. And then here's open positions, or here's where you can come and check back. And we also have a current email list serve that is for job openings and people who are interested, and we've been able to share that out as well. So that's my piece, I believe. I'll turn it back over to Corey.
So to conclude, we'll talk about things that we do in the Department for Employee Development. There's several different things that we're actively doing, and I just want to highlight some of those today. So the first thing I want to talk about is our leadership development program. This is a program that we have contracted out to have developed, but it's something that we currently are partnering with an individual to help us deliver it. That content that we had developed is something that's ours to use and to provide to our employees as we see fit. We've done leadership development in the past, but the current iteration is kind of what I'm referring to here. We talk about it in terms of LD1 and LD2. So it's got two levels to it. Our LD1 program is really emphasis on leading from where you are and standing and where you are and where you stand and understanding yourself and also others and how they operate so that you can help lead. Brian mentioned, Director Nesbitt mentioned our kickoff recently. Really awesome opportunity up at Whiskey Mountain Camp, and it was fantastic to have the governor there. It was a really neat experience. The LD1 program is supposed to be an interactive by design, so there's a lot of opportunity to have table discussions. There's team participation. So we'll assign teams and they have an opportunity to sort of shape some of the sessions. So in that picture there above LD1, you can see we're loading some rafts and boats made out of cardboard into the Green River to float a stretch of the Green River. That was part of one of the team's projects, and it was a really fantastic, really fun. Had some of them that actually floated, which was also a plus. Currently, we started the new LD1 program in 2019. We've had 60 graduates and we have 32 current participants in that program. A lot of really good feedback from that program so far, and we continue to tweak it based on that feedback. LD2, there's a greater emphasis on leading others in a more formal role and through larger projects. So project management, change management, conflict and crisis, we do a deeper dive into some of those things. Whereas in LD1, it's more a scatter shot of a lot of different tools and ideas that help with leadership. We do have that continued emphasis on teams and group learning. So in that picture above there, the team has an opportunity to actually present content and teach the class and come up with an activity that illustrates that concept. So here, I believe what we were doing was a project management idea where the project was to build a one-story house out of these popsicle sticks. Midway through, the project changed and it became to build a two-story house. And so they had to adjust on the fly as projects often have parameter changes that come up. Currently, we've had 2 classes go through for LD2, and that's been 38 total graduates since 2021 for that, for LD2. Some other leadership development opportunities we have at Game and Fish. We have a Western Conservation Leadership Development Program that was designed for middle and upper level supervisors and includes the WAFWA agencies. It was developed in 2021 with a lot of emphasis and development here at Game and Fish. There's a current cohort of 34 participants. Game and Fish has 3 current participants and 4 individuals who have completed the program in the past. We also provide supervisor training that was designed specifically for Game and Fish supervisors. It outlines expectations that we have for a supervisor at Game and Fish, some of the unique challenges that we face at Game and Fish, and also sort of a crash course in employment law. Really, the piece of that is to give them just enough fear that they know when to call HR when they have questions. 65 supervisors have attended and completed that training at this point. Some development opportunities that we have at Game and Fish. We have the Fish and Wildlife Management short course. This started as a course provided by CSU. They stopped doing that a few years back. And so Game and Fish and CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, decided they wanted to continue that program. And currently it was developed to be presented and provided from our agency. So we have agency personnel who go and teach the courses. And there's also opportunities to go out to field locations and learn more about some of the field locations. And this is designed for those, the personnel at our agencies that don't have a wildlife management, conservation management background. So our IT personnel, fiscal personnel, HR, where we don't come from that background, we can have an opportunity to learn more about wildlife management and how to support that. We also have legislative aids. So during the legislative session, we bring field personnel to Cheyenne and have them assist us with reviewing bills. That really is very helpful, not only to the departments, because we get an understanding of what that may look like and how that bill may affect our employees in the field and also our constituents. But it also allows us to get them exposure to that process and allow them to develop some understanding of what we do legislatively through the department. Additionally, we also have a lot of job shadowing and field experience opportunities at Game and Fish. There's always something going on. There's always a way to jump in and get involved. Some things that we have in the Laramie district that come up each year is the Springer pheasant hunt check stations, having employees come and assist with that. And then the Pole Mountain Beaver Pond fish stocking, have department personnel and also volunteers help with that project. And each region has a lot of these where we just all jump together and have an opportunity to pitch in and help out. Finally, we do have these Conservation Association conferences. So the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, we have membership with that and send personnel to attend that. A lot of times there'll be directors, deputy directors, division chiefs, deputy chiefs that are attending, and have an opportunity to get some development of themselves and also pass on information, best practices of what we're doing at Wyoming Game and Fish to other agencies. The Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, very similar. That's 24 states and Canadian provinces, mostly Western states that participate in that. And then WAFWA also has a CBMA conference that's for conservation business managers. We currently have several people at the one in Louisiana today that may normally be at a commission meeting. Director Phipps, Jennifer Doring are attending that currently. So that's for, once again, for those positions that probably don't have as much wildlife background, conservation background, but we're all supporting an agency that is focused on wildlife management, conservation, and learning best practices, how to support those agencies better is the intent there. So with that, that's the conclusion of this presentation. Would like to make one last plug. We are almost always hiring. I don't think there's been a month of my employment with Game and Fish where we haven't had jobs available for people to apply to. So we're always hiring, and definitely encourage people to track our hiring process, track our positions that are open. And I would stand for any questions that the commission may have at this time.
Mr. President.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bell.
So I have I would say a plethora of questions, and I was wondering if there's a chance, because I know what we're running up against the time that you would, and we still have another agenda item, and I want to thank Commissioner Lundvall for putting this on the agenda, because I think it's really, really important. We talk about all these fun projects, but we wouldn't have any of this if we didn't have the people. And this is really talking about the service that is provided by the people that we have, and how, I mean, really, I think this is a great topic to talk about more, especially with Commissioner Lundvall here, who wanted it on there. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if this is possible that we continue this at the next commission meeting.
Sure. Or will you be here tomorrow morning?
Yes, I will be here tomorrow. Yes.
We'll see if, and I mean, either way, Mr. President, I'm okay. I can certainly frame these questions in an email also, so everybody's prepared. I don't think there's anything confrontational by any means. I just want to talk about, a lot of this stuff that I think is great, and how job employment and that kind of stuff is changed over years, and the demand that we put on our wardens and all of those kind of things. And I think it's going to take longer than what we have now.
Okay, Mr. Director.
I recommend we just pick up with it in the morning. And then if there's anything that Commissioner Bell has that we can't answer, we will find the answers and bring them back to the next commission meeting.
Very good. I don't know either.
seen either timestamp, so just those last one. Do we know Commissioner Lemwald?
We don't. She just indicated she wasn't feeling well, had to get off tonight. I'm guessing she'll try again in the morning. And if,
At the next commission?
and if not, we will, because I think it is an important topic. I have questions about how we continue and so, yeah, I don't think we're done with this conversation, but I agree with you, Commissioner Bell. We're short on time today because we have a hard stop for our banquet to go to. So we'll continue that discussion. That was very good. Thank you for the presentation.
Continue that in the morning.
Yes, let's start with that.
Okay.
If
You
we
good with
have Commissioner Lundvall, and if we don't, then we'll just,
Okay, if we don't, we'll do
Yeah.
another informational in November. Okay. Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Nesvik, last agenda item for the day. The Fiscal Division Administration is off in other conferences, as you just heard about, in others outside the state. Chief Phipps approached all of his fellow chiefs to do this presentation for him, and they all said no. I was honored to do this for Chief
Good job.
Phipps. I said, I'll do it. So pretty dang straightforward for you today. We have two transfers, LSAs. All American Fuel was bought by Fast Stop, Big Piney. There's no other agents in Big Piney. All American Fuel sales in 2022 were about $57,000. Do you want to handle these one at a time or both together, Mr. President?
if they're both transfers, let's.
They're both
let's put them
transferred.
Together, yep.
Okay. Second transfer is West Bank Anglers in Jackson. There's 10 other agents in Jackson. West Bank Anglers sales in 2022 were about $26,000. 10 agents in Jackson, excluding the regional office. Total sales of 10 agents for 2022 in Jackson was almost $500,000. The department is recommending that the commission vote to approve the transfer of All American Fuel and the transfer of West Bank Anglers.
Mr. President, I would move that the commission approve those two licensed selling agent transfers, All American Fuels and Big Piney and West Bank Anglers in Jackson.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bell, seconded by Commissioner Jolovich. Is there any further discussion? Simple transfer. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Do we have any public comments forward for today? I don't think so. We're going to the Landowner of the Year Award Banquet. Look to see you there. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Jolovich, second by Commissioner Bell. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.